What is up, people? It is March 14th, right? March 14th, Pi Day. So I wanted to start the show by asking, this is so hilarious, I just did this like 2 seconds ago, but Echo, what is Pi Day?
Pi Day is an annual celebration of the mathematical constant pi that takes place each March 14th. This date represents 3, 1, and 4, which are pi's first three significant digits. People often spend the day learning about or reciting pi and making pies. The U.S. House of Representatives officially recognized Pi Day's special status in 2009.
Thank you. I'm not going to say ECHO again, or it's going to repeat. So let's talk about this a little bit in just a second, but welcome to Cheerful Conversations. All right, peeps, I am here with my awesome co-host for this first show of March, Deb Seymour. Deb, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Apryl. It's great to be here. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I will dive into a whole bunch of stuff about Deb in just a second, but let's just really quickly talk about this whole Pi Day thing. Happy Pi Day!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So now we know, you know, the 3.14. Do you know the full, you know, the decimal for pi? Like how far
April,
can you go?
I have a story about math. No.
I think I know 3.1415927, and that's kind of where I stop. But yeah, I geek out on math, so this is a fun day. Not that I paid too much attention to, you know, making pies or, you know, celebrating this day like crazy or anything, but it is definitely Pi Day. So, yeah, what's your favorite pie, Deb?
Oh my gosh, blueberry pie. You need 4 cups of blueberries. And I love wild blueberries.
That sounds so good.
Yes,
I was trying to think about what my favorite pie was, and I feel like the only... I like apple pie, but like I think the first thing that came to my mind was key lime pie.
That's my husband's favorite.
But I feel like I've only had like key lime pie, like cheesecake or something, like key lime cheesecake. I don't know if I've actually had key lime pie, so now I'm like, I'm not sure. But anyways, Happy Pi Day.
Happy Pi Day.
So Deb and I today are going to talk about a very simple theme, which we have titled Simple Fun. And of course, I love everything that has to do with fun. So this was a super exciting topic that Deb brought to us, and I'm super excited. I'm not really even sure where this is going to go, but it's we're just going to keep it simple, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're going to talk about simple and fun and putting them together and all of that fun stuff. But before we do that, I wanted to have you guys really understand who Deb is. She's amazing, and I'm like just so happy about all the people that I'm going to be bringing on the show because they're just amazing people. But Deb is definitely one of my favorites, and yeah, so let's just kind of dive into that. So Deb, why don't you tell everybody what it is, like who you are and what you do?
Okay, cool. I'm a leadership coach, and I live outside of Philadelphia, but I think my soul is in Maine on our property on Moosehead Lake, and I know it's gorgeous up there. I still work full time and I do training, but my passion is really being outdoors and in nature. And, so I've, done the coach gig and learned a lot about coaching and put my passions together. And so I offer retreats on our lake, in the summertime, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And I've never been to Maine, and I have a friend who lives in Maine, and I'm like, I need to figure out how to get there, so hopefully soon, and, you know, maybe I'll be coming to one of your retreats, so I'm super excited. Deb has also participated in my accountability success circle, which is, so she's been a client of mine. And it's been really great to be able to see what's going on both at work and in her personal life and all of that, in that journey. So yay! Super fun. Let's talk about how we met.
I think we met via Natalie.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Natalie. Natalie was in one of my peer groups through the coach training program, and she found out about you somehow, and then she told me, and I thought, wow, that sounds like a really cool gig to be part of this accountability success circle. And I'm glad I took her advice. And really, we've not met face to face, but it's so nice. We will someday. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. But I just love the energy and what you stand for and how you've helped us. So it's been a really great introduction.
Yeah, and so to kind of back that up even further, so we both went through the same coach training, just at different times in different cities. Where did you do your
in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia. Who was your trainer?
I had so many.
Oh, really?
I had Frank Macri and a couple others aren't there anymore, but Mark Shaw.
Okay, I had Mark.
And oh my gosh, isn't he awesome?
Yeah, did
he sing for you?
I think so.
He's a singer.
Yes. And so he was my Mod 1 instructor, and I love telling the story because I mentioned it in my book too. But there was something I mentioned in my book about how like my Mod 1, or I wouldn't have mentioned this in the book, but IPEC has 3 modules of in-person training. I did mine in 3 separate cities. The first one I did was in New Jersey, and Mark Shaw was was my trainer, and I was just a hot mess during that training. I was like the only person who cried. Maybe it was just like the East Coasters have thicker skin than I do, but I was crying, and there was just one morning where I just came in and I was so lit up and I wanted to tell the story, and a lot of people know that I'm like such an outward processor, and I ramble on and have tendencies to do that, and he kind of cut me off and was like, okay, on to the next, and I was pissed. And that ruined my entire morning, and I was just kind of quiet, and during a break, he's like, what's wrong? I was like, I have to say something too, but I just can't. He's like, just spit it out. I was like, you're an a-hole! But I said the actual,
You did!
I did. And he's like, thank you. And I was like, what? Why are you saying thank you? It was just like the weirdest reaction to somebody calling you an asshole. But, but he was one of those things. He's like, you're an outward processor, and that's okay. And that was a huge aha for me, because I was like, I used to hate that. Like, I used to never talk in class because I felt like I couldn't get to the point fast enough, and I was ashamed of it for a really long time. And it was after that he kind of taught me that it was okay for me to be that way unless I really wanted to make a change, but it's part of who I am. I am a natural storyteller, and I embrace that part of me now. And so, and he allowed me to call him an asshole. So, it was all really good. And when my book came out, I was like, I talked about you in my book. And he's like, what? And I was like, remember when I called you an asshole? So anyways,
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So super, I have absolute respect for him, and it was a really transformational thing. But yes, I had him too. So the long story long. That's the no,
that's great. I know there's such great facilitators at IPEC. So absolutely,
for sure. So we've got the coaching connection, and then obviously meeting through Natalie, who's also part of the Success Circle, and maybe I'll have her on here sometime soon. And she's also amazing. So it's just. I just love talking about this stuff because you never know how people arrive in your life, right? You just, you don't always have a plan. And, I don't even think I think the reason that Natalie found me is because I posted something in a Facebook group, in the Facebook group, and she's like, let me just see what this is all about. And that was how it all started. But then, she brought you and some other people into the program, which was great. And I wouldn't have met you guys otherwise. Or maybe I would have, but it would have just been a totally different circumstance. So.
Well, I think that's what's great about all of this, just social media in general, and just being able to connect. I know where I work, I've been there for 28 years, and I don't know any different. And I believe that all other people that go to work just like me. And then I went to IPEC and I met all these awesome people and realized, there's a whole big world out there.
Totally.
And I think over the past couple of years, that's where, a lot of change for me has come out. And, I just realized, what, I do have a lot of gifts to offer, and why not go for it? Yeah. who cares? I mean, it's going to work out. People are going to like find you and be on the same vibe with you, and it's going to work out. And so I'm glad that I got to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay! And it doesn't stop here, so
No.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the other questions that I ask all of my guest co-hosts is, what is something that's not work related that you totally geek out on?
All right. So I love to garden.
Awesome.
And we have a vegetable garden. And I grew up with my mom and dad always having a really big garden. And in fact, they rented part of the field from the farmer like 20 minutes down the road from us, so they could have like 2 gardens. And we've had seeds in our family for these awesome cherry tomatoes for probably 45 years. So every August, you pick one of them, you take the seeds out, you kind of slime it all over this paper towel, and you let it dry, and you just fold up that paper towel. And then actually this coming weekend, I'm going to peel some of those seeds off, and I'm going to put it in the little cells with all the soil medium to start it, and put it underneath the grow lights. And probably around, I'd say Memorial Day weekend, they'll be this big, and I'll stick them in the ground, and they'll make the most awesome tasting cherry tomatoes ever. So, but we grow other vegetables too, but I really like to garden. So, but these cherry tomatoes are to die for.
That's great.
It's really cool.
I am not good at gardening, and my mom is, she loves gardening too. It's funny because a lot of things that my mom really likes, I feel like I haven't latched onto. So I'm like, I might need to get some expertise, because our landscaping and all that fun stuff is not looking great, and I feel like there's this calling for me to step out of my comfort zone and try to plant some stuff sometime soon.
Well, I think I saw you like shoveling snow, so I think you got it.
Oh my gosh.
The little engine that could. I think that's what I called you. Your picture was hilarious.
Yeah, and I feel like it's one of those things where I want to experience all of the things. I might not ever dive deep into anything, or I might dive deep into certain things, but that'll only be for like a finite period of time. And then So
seeds lasting for 45 years in your family, not going to happen.
No, I mean, well, if it's, if it's setting a foundation, then maybe that might work. Yeah, I mean, geeking out on stuff, because, like, my thing right now is improv, and I feel like I talk about it, like, nonstop, but the thing that used to be my thing, like, even just 2 years ago was trapeze, and I, like, don't even talk about it now. So I'm just, like, I'm like a serial hobbyist or something. I think I might have said that in a previous show, and I'm like, that's totally me. It's like I get really deep on something, but then I kind of, like, let it go after a while. I'm like, it's okay. So, but gardening will definitely, we'll see how long it takes for me to like get all passionate about that. But I mean, I wish I enjoyed it more. Like, there's just so much that I feel that I could do, but then I'm also thinking, what's the other stuff that I would not be doing otherwise? So, and then when I would do things, I want them to be like, I really like go deep with it. And so I would have to, say goodbye to a lot of other stuff. So, because I can't just be like, okay, I'll just do it a little bit. Like, as soon as I dip my toe in the water, I jump in. I'm all in. Go big or go home. Okay. And then what I also do is I ask a random icebreaker question, because it's just fun to have, as coaches, we love to ask questions, but I'm going to just pick a random. This is my vulnerability is sexy little game that I got from a friend of mine here in the Chicago area. Are you ready?
Oh, geez. Okay.
Okay. So, okay. Let me see if I can, I don't know if you can read it. So, I should have just read it this way. What is something someone did for you recently that made you feel loved?
Oh, gosh. I'd have to say, probably my son. He's at college right now. He's at Temple. Awesome. And, sometimes he'll just take a picture of himself and just send it to me and say, hey, how are you? And it's just like really like simple, like you're not expecting it, but it's just really nice that he does that for me. So that was the most recent thing, but it's nice to get that from your 19-year-old son.
For sure.
Yeah. What about you?
Kids are amazing. I was trying to think, what that was. But then when you started talking about your son, I'm like, oh man, now I got to talk about my kids too. Because they always make me feel loved. I always say that my youngest, he's super empathetic. He can really pick up on when I'm upset, and I just think that we are kindred spirits in that sense. And but now I feel like the one thing, if I had to really think super recently, my oldest son, who's 8, Justin, he has been taking a little bit more ownership and responsibility, and that as somebody who likes to baby their children, he has been, setting an alarm and trying to get up in the morning. And this morning, he actually got up probably before me, and he brushed his teeth. I was like, this is so simple, right? But hey, on the
simple
theme.
theme.
Yeah. He got up, he got dressed, he brushed his teeth, he did all this stuff, and then he came in and he put his hands on his hips, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I was like, you did great. I was like, did you brush your teeth? He's like, yep. And then he came in and he just cuddled with me for a little bit, and I was like, what? Cutie. It was only 7:00, and usually I'm usually trying to get them out of bed. I'm trying to dress them while they're not even awake. And so this was great because it was 7:00. It was 30 minutes before I normally wake him up, when it's the absolute latest. And he had all this time. And I said, so what do you want to do? Do you want to read? Do you want to do he's got this program he does at school called Reflex Math on the Pi thing.
Gosh.
Where it's a computerized thing where they're basically practicing math facts, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And he's like, I'll go do that. And he went down, and we also had some time to, we have a stress management book that we go through together. So we're talking about belly breathing this morning while we were eating breakfast. And this is we had so much time to do all this stuff. And I just felt so proud that he's starting to take ownership, and it's not just me dragging him out of bed, forcing him to go. So that was probably, even though it was just totally, he didn't necessarily do anything. It was just watching him become like a little baby mini adult.
Little man.
Yes. It just, and my love language is acts of service. So it was like, oh my God, he's actually doing stuff on his own, and I don't need to do it. I love it. So that was definitely being honored. So yay.
That's great. Yay.
Awesome. I love kids. Okay. So, what I had normally done in previous shows was I started the show with the Ask Apryl Anything question, which for any of you that are watching, if at any time you have a random question that you want asked that would be featured on the show or in a newsletter or anything that has to do with the Cheerful Mind, there is a website that I have where you can just literally ask me anything aside from, keeping it relatively clean, right? So,
oh gosh.
So I have this whole backlog of questions that people have asked me, and I'm chipping away at this list. And when we were discussing the theme for this show, I was like, okay, is there anything in this stack of questions that has to do with simple fun? And so one of the questions that caught my eye, and I'd love to hear, Deb, what you think about this. And I've been trying to figure out what I would answer about this. But here's the question that somebody asked me.
Okay.
It said, what's the one item, and no people, cannot be a person, what's the one item that you couldn't live without?
Oh gosh.
I feel like I was thinking about this, and I feel like one of the things that was coming up was and this is so bad, I almost feel guilty saying this, but I don't know if I could live without my cell phone. I don't know if that's a good answer, because...
All right, so minus the cell phone, what else?
Oh my God, a pillow?
A pillow. That's a good one. I know, your pillow just feels so good. Yeah. I know, I was thinking, I need my glasses. I'm pretty blind without them, but I don't know, there's something about your feet. I would need really good shoes, sneakers or something like that if we were somewhere.
Yeah.
Are we away somewhere, or is this kind of I have to have it forever?
I just said, I'm thinking almost it's just at any time, so it has to be something that's prevalent in your life right now. It's not like if you were on a stranded island, because that would just be a little bit different, right?
Okay. Okay.
I mean, and that's how I interpreted it. But I mean, and that was
chocolate. Chocolate.
See, I could potentially live without chocolate.
Oh, no.
I feel like I could live without anything, but I think that the reason why the cell phone was coming up so strongly is because one of my values is connection. And I mean, obviously we didn't have them, growing up. I feel like I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19 or something like that, or 20. And it was still those like big clunky ones at the time. But I feel like it's because technology has become such a staple in our lives. There's just so much connection to the outside world. So the people that I love, only my closest friends and family have my phone number. So if I were to change my number, which I did a lot when I was growing up, I must have changed it like 5 or 6 times, but ever
Boyfriends?
I don't know if that was what it was, but like every time I switched jobs, the very first cell phone I had was in college, but then when I started working, I was like, I want a Chicago city number, so I switched phone numbers, and then that was that. But then I left that job and I kind of threw everything away and then changed to like a different area code and then changed to a different area code. It was so not necessary, but that was what I did. But I've had the same number now for maybe 12 years, but I feel like there's so many connections here that if I were to let that go, I could change my number if I wanted to, but now it's become a part of me. And I feel like it's the one thing that is probably the second biggest commitment in my life aside from marriage, right? Which is this phone number, and this is the connection that I have to the outside world. And the most important people would if I chose to change my number down the road, like that's fine. But it's also, I don't know, it's just my way of, it's something that I always have with me, the days that I realize that I forget it somewhere, or it's just, I have a lot of anxiety about it, but it's not even that I'm always on my phone. It's just, it's the gateway to connect with people. It's the thing that I need to be on in order to make an in-person connection with somebody. There's a lot of texting about the logistics of how are we going to hang out tonight, or, where are we going to go? And without that, I can take this wherever I go. And it's obviously how I communicate with most of my clients now too. So it's just, I think that's why that was there, but
yeah, that makes sense.
But it sucks because it's like, why does it have to be technology? Being able to put it away and say, no, now I need to be present in the moment. As long as I can do that, then maybe it's okay. But it's also like, what other thing? And I think just the pillow, because I just don't like sleeping on a flat surface.
I know, huh? I know. I'm in my office and I'm looking at a picture of our place in Maine and the kayaks. And if I don't have my Tevas, I'm miserable because there's rocks on the ground and I need my really good, I don't know why I'm going to the feet thing with my shoes. Yeah. I don't know. Know.
Well, I mean, we all have feet, right?
Yeah.
We all have to go places. We all have to go somewhere. Does it align with any of your values?
I know. I think nature is a really big value of mine, and just being outside and hiking or, just being near the water. I think that's a really big value of mine. So I get the connected piece. If I ever had to choose, I would be fine being at our lakehouse in Maine and just saying, see you later. Like that is like calm, peaceful, just, I'm good. As long as I have my husband with me, I would be bored. So maybe he's the thing I need.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that this is also a good segue to have a little bit of a deeper discussion about this concept of simple fun. Too, because, talking about cell phones and, it is a very rushed and busy lifestyle that we have in society right now. And because of the technological advances, we're able to handle more complex situations. But I think that it's also taken us away from this concept of simplicity. Like all the things that when I was little, going on road trips, like gosh darn, if I didn't have an iPad, my kids right now, if they didn't have an iPad, they would be bored out of their mind in the car. Where I remember, we would go on road trips all the time, and some of the things that I used to enjoy were all of those, the license plate games, or, trying to get the truck drivers to honk the horn by going like this. And just, playing games like I Spy and just random stuff like that that you just don't see as much anymore because of technology. So I know that you were the one that suggested that we talk about this concept of simple fun. So I'm really curious, Deb, to hear, what does that mean to you and why is it so important?
Yeah. I just think that it's a nice way to reconnect back to myself. And, for anybody to reconnect back to really who you are without all the distractions. And I have the extreme, stories to show this, one end, I went on the Disney cruise with, 3 of our neighbors. So there were probably like 15 of us, and it was awesome. There was a lot going on, but I remember seeing my really good friend. We're sitting at dinner. We're all dressed up. And of course we have the second dinner. I don't know if you've ever been on the Disney cruise, but there's 2 different dinners, and we're on the second one. And, her daughter, who probably at the time, she might be 4, is having a meltdown. Of course, it's like 8:30 at night. You're on the Disney cruise. She's tired. Yeah. And I look over at my friend, and my friend is crying. And I'm like, what is going on? And, it was almost like this, buildup of what she thought this Disney cruise was going to be for having fun, and all the expectations put on this moment. And it was bad. It was like disappointing to her. And I look at that, with love and, no judgment, but it's just a lesson, because, I always grew up going to see my grandparents in Maine on Moosehead Lake. And it was always very, very there was no TV, because my grandparents didn't have TV in the cabin. They didn't even have a phone. They did have a bathroom though. But we brought books. We went to the library before and we got books. We played a lot of games. We went hiking. We would always have campfires outside. We would do a lot of swimming. My sisters and I got really creative. I think that's where the love of it comes to, with a lot of creativity with how to have fun. We would make forts, put, stuff together. And it's like that's where it was, we made it fun. It wasn't like we expected it to be fun. We made it into fun. And that's where I think the simple fun concept comes from, with you're showing up and you're not expecting anything other than you yourself, deciding in the moment what it is you want to do. Yeah. And just going with it. And being surprised along the way with, what you notice when you're outside, or the type of conversation that you get to have with somebody that, you're not distracted with all these other things of what you need to do in 2 more hours because Mickey's going to be showing up. It's like, that's like too much of a timeline where just go and be yourself and have fun and connect with people.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that's such a huge theme in a lot of the things that I do, right? Because I work with such busy people. They're trying to be, the number one in every single area of their life. And it's a tough, it's a bar that is set so high. Yeah. And I feel like, in order to, and I know that a lot of people come to talk to me about time management and some of that stuff, but what's really, really interesting is that even in my own personal journey, there is a level of having to be diligent and having a plan and understanding what you need to do in what order in order to make something happen in the most efficient way. But I know this better than anybody because I literally planned out basically the first 30 years of my life to a T. That only takes you so far. And I was so busy and everything was so complex that I just stopped seeing different opportunities in my life that maybe could have presented themselves if I had a little bit more space. And it's a concept for busy people that is really, really hard to understand. I know that there's a big trigger around this idea of like slowing down and being present and being in the moment, because it's like, oh my gosh, if I don't, I'm going to miss out on something. But either way, it's almost like if you have too much space or if you don't have enough, you're going to miss out on something. And so it's this constant struggle of trying to find that balance of, you know, what is it that you want to accomplish? And if you allow yourself to be so busy all of the time, what are the simple things that you're missing out on? Because I think one of the things that I had said in Mod 1 of our IPEC training was that I want my business to feel like it's effortless, that I'm not even really working because it feels like it's so much in flow. But it didn't seem like that was even possible, because it's like, I got to put up a website. I got to really understand like who my target market is. I got to do all of these things. And it was painful. And I think only just starting towards like mid last year, I was like, okay, I need to start to identify this concept of what this effortless feeling is. And I took a break after my book came out and just kind of was going a little bit slower. And I had that space to get inspired to create the accountability success circle. Like, and yes, I worked hard in that moment, but like having that space to say, I don't really know what the heck I'm doing was the catalyst for everything that's in my life right now. And same thing from 3 years ago when I took, you know, when I left my job and had no idea what I was doing. That was the only way that I was going to even identify that the cheerful mind should be in existence. Didn't maybe know what that was back then, but with that space, with that simplicity, all of this stuff started happening. And I don't know, this might sound really woo to all of my very logical friends and people out there who know how I used to be, but it's just crazy how, and so that's something that I almost prioritize. Like a lot of times I'll feel guilt about like, oh, I'm not doing any work today, maybe, or I did 1 hour of work. And then I'm like, yeah, but I want to go get my nails done today. I'm just feeling it. Just having that flexibility. It took me a while to get there, but, it just feels so different being able to have that space. And so, but I don't think it's what people, especially people who are like me, they tend to see, you know, they don't tend to latch onto that because it just doesn't seem possible. Right. So
it's almost like you need to look at it like an upside down triangle. Okay. So, you know, if you look at like, okay, maybe 5 years or 10 years from now, what does it look like? And you're starting off instead small and it's growing, versus you think about a lot of people like in January and they start off with, okay, that's where I want to be. And I have to do all these things, and they just get overwhelmed. And then they stop.
They give up.
Yeah. And it's like, no, do it like, kind of have like, you got to have like the big idea, but, you know, start small because, you know, and like you, I'm very controlled, or I used to be. I'm realizing it's okay.
Yeah.
Actually, better things happen when you just let it go. You're starting off with just like the one idea and you're letting it grow. Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, if you asked me 2 years ago that I would be sitting here talking to you about what I'm talking to you about, I'd be like, what are you talking? That doesn't make any sense. That's not me. I'm supposed to go to work. I'm supposed to get up and go to work and do what I'm supposed to do. And, you know, I still do that. I still enjoy it, but I don't know, there's just more to life than I realized. And it's really nice to wake up to that. So
totally. It is crazy. And it all starts with just kind of setting that intention and being open to, you know, open to what that might be, and, you know, open to, you know, the unknown, right? I think that's the other issue. It's like we all fear like what we don't know. And so it makes complete sense that we don't want to go there because we want to be in our safe little bubbles where everybody's busy and everybody is all about it is what it is. And, you know, you just have to suck it up and deal with it. But to actually make that change and believe that something else is possible that doesn't seem like the norm it just doesn't seem possible. Like, it doesn't seem realistic.
Right. But when you were a kid, you thought that way, though. The way that you played, right?
I know.
You didn't worry. And everything was just really fun and creative. And it was like you went outside and you played and you rode your bike and you played 21 I don't know. Did you play basketball when you were little?
I was a terrible basketball player, but yes.
I was captain.
I think I mentioned this in my last episode with John, but I think I scored 2 points because I played 7th and 8th grade, and I was a little, was I a point guard? I don't remember. One of the guards.
Probably.
Not a shooting guard, probably not, because that would have been really bad. But I think I scored 2 points, and they were both free throws. And I remember I scored nothing my 7th grade year. In 8th grade, the first free throw that I hit, I did like this 360, like, yes! Like, I had threw my arm and I was like, did a 360 jump, and I was so happy. And then I hit the second one and I was like, yay!
Oh my gosh.
And that was my basketball career. Yeah. Super simple. Better as a cheerleader on the sidelines. Which,
okay, all right.
So yeah, I was the energy behind the actual shots that were being made. But yeah, I don't know.
I think we could take some lessons from who we were as kids.
For sure.
You know what? I mean, it all worked out. Look at that. Look at how good we are right now, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, we're going to figure it out. We don't have to know the answers.
Yeah,
we're going to figure it out.
So here's one question that I have for you. Like, is there anything that you did as a child that you still do today?
I paint.
You paint?
Yeah. And I love acrylics, and in fact, I teach it every once in a while. I used to teach it a lot more.
About you.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I know. I love it. And but when I was little, the paint by numbers. Did you do that too? You know. Yeah. And then, of course, it goes away. But I think I was always pretty artistic. My mom would always let us do things like that. And but then you go to college and then you get a job, and there was a little art studio in town, and my mom saw that they had lessons on Thursday nights, and this was probably 25 years ago. And she's like, Deborah, you have to come with me. We're going to go on Thursday nights to art class. I'm like, what? And I'm working full time. So every Thursday night I would go to this painting class with my mom. And this is like way before the painting with a twist. Do you have that sort of stuff in Chicago? Those painting those stores where you can just go in for the one night and you just paint with your friends. Do you have that in Chicago?
We have stuff where they've got like the ceramics that you can paint, and then
same type of thing.
Or like doing like an actual like on a canvas like painting while you're drinking type of deal.
Yeah. We were doing that, but it wasn't like a one and done in one night. Like sometimes it would take me a couple months to finish these projects. But I loved it because I got to be with my mom, and it was Thursday nights, and we would go to painting classes, and it was a lot of fun. And some of my friends said, "Gosh, you do really such a great job. Can you teach me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So awesome. My husband, he loves woodworking, and so he would cut out the shapes, and we would be in our basement, and my friends would come over at night. And once a week, I think I did it on Wednesday nights or something like that, and I would teach them how to paint. And it was acrylics, and we had a lot of fun. I'm looking around my office. I have a couple pieces. Here's one. I don't know. Can you see this? This is a candle holder with birdhouses on it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I suck at painting, but I try.
Yeah.
But, that's awesome.
Yeah, so... Yeah, but, it's relaxing for me. I don't do it as much as I would like to. I probably should do it again. I'm kind of like you. Sometimes when I'm all in on something. So, but I have those skills. So that's what I did when I was little. And what else is kind of funny? When I was little, I have two younger sisters, and in the basement, my parents bought us this really big chalkboard, and we loved to play school. And so I would be the teacher and using the chalkboard. It was like this green board. It had Mickey Mouse on it, I remember. And I'm teaching my sisters. And it's funny because I'm the trainer at my company now where I work. So go figure. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah.
That is awesome. I was trying to think about, stuff that I did as a kid that I still do today. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like the one thing that's always been a staple in my life that I could take with me no matter what I was doing was singing.
Yeah.
I played piano for like 14 years, and I have a weird relationship with it now because I think it was just like drilled into me. I just have like horror, like remembering sitting at the piano, like having to sit there. I was really good, but it was just one of those things that I just wasn't passionate about. But I did it for so long, so now it's like, I don't want to impart any sort of anything activity on anyone unless they really truly want to do it. Maybe to just try it, but before we dive deep into it, I can't. And so I think my parents hate me for not having my kids like be in piano classes right now. But singing was always something that was really important to me, and it's something that I could do in private. Right? I never needed an audience because the acoustics in the shower are amazing, or even in the car when I have the volume turned all the way up. Like, nobody needs to hear it. It's that feeling. And so I feel like in terms of activity, that's probably something that sticks. But on a totally random side note, do you know those notebooks where you had like the invisible ink pen and it's like yes and no, and like you could do different games and they would have like different trivia or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
So I found those books at the place where my kids get their haircut. It's like a kid snip, so they've got toys embedded like all over, like, and then they've got, it's just a kid themed haircut place. But I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to buy all of them. Yeah. And so a lot of last summer, because we just got an RV camper trailer that we pull with our car. So that's my attempt to be a little bit more simple, even though our trailer has a shower.
It's good to have coffee in the morning.
Yes. It's got a stove and a freezer, and it's a little bit more more glamping. Exactly. Yeah. But one of the things that, we went camping like 5 times last year, and you don't always have internet, which is a good thing, I think, especially for somebody like me who's very dependent on it. And so I needed certain things. I don't know why I didn't think to start reading at that point, but it was just like I like activities. I'm the type that likes to do like the word searches and Sudoku and all those things. But I found those. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do it, and like all this baseball trivia and like different things to guess, and it just totally brought me back to that stuff that I did when I was a kid, because I totally love those things. And it's just crazy to see some of that from my childhood come back. Yeah.
I do remember that. It's like it was a white pen. It had like an orange cap.
Yes. I probably have some. These were like thick black markers with a white cap. But I had like 6 different books, and I went through them, and then I'd have my kids, my niece and nephew, they're like, oh, I want to do the guessing, and so we would do it together. But it was just,
fun.
It was like, those the simple days.
Oh, it was. Yeah.
And even those, here's another random game, the games where, you had it was like a pen that had a magnet on the end, and then there was just like this like black like
stuff,
iron, whatever that you could like pull and like create like
like the Etch-a-Sketch.
It had Etch-a-Sketch, but I don't know. It was just, I don't remember. I just feel like there was like a face, and then you're making like mustaches and stuff. I'll have to take a look and try to see if I can find that. Yeah. But all of those toys and all those games were so fun back then.
Oh yeah, Did you play with Play-Doh?
I did. I don't necessarily think that I was in love with that, because I'm just not good. I'm not artistic in that sense. Visually artistic. I think when it comes to tracing, I'm a really good tracer.
But
I stink at actually creating art unless I'm trying to mimic something. And so all of my art.
You're like my sister then. She needs like a flow log. I'm like, no, just paint, just with your heart, just don't think about it, just do it.
I could do that. Or if I had to do abstract painting where there's like I'm just putting colors everywhere, I'm good at that. But if it's supposed to look like something, I don't think so. But I mean, I think I enjoyed Play-Doh. We were talking about this before. My son made this little Oh no, it lost one of its antennas. He made this little ladybug out of Play-Doh. My 6-year-old.
Cute.
It's just
Very
super cute.
Love it.
I don't think I could do that. So
you would be surprised.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. And I've done a couple like painting things, but it was just always like having a guide or having something like I definitely need that.
Yeah.
I'm more in the artistry of words and sound, that type of stuff, or body technique or something like that. That's where my art is.
My son and my niece and my nephews are pretty creative too. So every Christmas Eve, what we do is we play charades, but it's backwards. So all the adults are sitting, and it's men against women, so boys against girls. So me and my 2 sisters versus my husband and my 2 brother-in-laws. And our kids, they come up with the words themselves, which is hilarious. So they're coming up with them, taking like a couple hours to come up with these really cool things. And then we pick and we show the kids what to act out, and the opposite team, the men, have to guess it in a certain period of time. So it's like backwards charades, but the kids just love being really silly and creative. And, you know, some of the things that they do, it's kind of a little X-rated on some of the topics. It's really kind of funny. Yeah. I'm like, what? How'd you come up with this? It's funny, but it's what we look forward to on Christmas Eve. So,
that's awesome.
You know, just silly things like that. So I think our family has always been a little bit like that when it comes to just, you know, and of course, you know, we'll go for a walk on Christmas Eve and, you know, just, it's, you know, basic things that we've always done, but we just enjoy them together. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And I had just this random hit to just kind of ask this question about, I just ended up thinking about traditions and simple traditions and different things that, you know, might have been a part of your family for a really long time. Do you have anything like that? Because I mean, for me, our simple traditions that we have, it can't get too complicated or just, it's too much. But, you know, we always do cookies for Santa as long as that can keep going. On Christmas Eve, and then one tradition that my husband and I have is that every Valentine's Day, every other year, we pick a restaurant and we don't tell the other person what that.
Oh, that's nice.
What restaurant we're going to, and the only criteria is that it can't be a restaurant that either of us have been to, which is
that's fun.
It's getting harder and harder just because we're now.
You might have to move.
Yeah, well, and sometimes I don't always know if he's attending a work dinner or something. Has he been to, you know, so we have to get creative about, you know, is this a new restaurant that just came up in the last couple of years? And there's the chances, and we haven't, you know, broken that rule yet. It's going to happen at some point, but just that simple tradition of just committing to going to dinner on Valentine's Day, and picking and swapping different things, but it's just super simple, but it's so meaningful. Do you have anything like that?
I know. Well, you know, my mom is a great cook, and so, you know, there's definitely some special meals that we would always have, and Christmas Eve is also my dad's birthday. And so, you know, again, going back to the garden thing, I can my own tomatoes because my mom canned her own tomatoes, and you make sauce. I'm half Italian. My mom's all Italian. So, I don't make sauce other than homemade sauce. So, every Christmas Eve there's lasagna. And, for us, lasagna is made with meatballs, tiny, tiny meatballs, and you have to roll the meatballs, and they're really tiny. They're probably, I'd say, like a half an inch. And you know, I know how my mom makes it. My mom and dad are not with us anymore. They're around. They're in heaven right now though.
Yes.
But you know, we still have the lasagna on Christmas Eve, and we say happy birthday to my dad. And you know, it's just, we've always done that. So that's probably the biggest tradition. You know, that holiday and that meal. You know, I think, gosh, I don't know. I think it really has to do with the food that my mom would make for us, and just those really nice recipes that are, you know, homemade. And I like to cook and bake, and so do my sisters. So it's like, you know, my sister Sue in Connecticut, she will make Thanksgiving and it tastes exactly the way my mother would make it. So it's like, I feel like we're still having Thanksgiving with my parents, even though they're not with us. It just tastes the same. It's all the memories. It's like, so we always had that as our family routines and traditions. So yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
My mom, she was good. I remember also, again, going to my grandparents' place in Maine, she would make us lunch, and she would make a sandwich and put it in a plastic bag. And my sisters and I would swim out to this rock. We always called it the Big Rock.
Oh, yes.
And
I've heard this
and so we would swim with the plastic bag above our heads, and we would go to the Big Rock, and we would climb up it, and we would have our lunch. Like, that was like the coolest tradition that we would do when we were on vacation, to be able to say that we swam with our lunch above our heads to go out to this point and, climb up this rock in the middle of the lake and have lunch. So just fun things like that.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. All right. It looks like we have about 10 minutes
left.
Wow.
It's gone by fast.
I know, right? It's crazy. Yeah. And so I wanted to start to wrap up. And one of the things that we do on every single show is to share a little bit of cheerful news, because that's kind of what we're all about. We're looking for the positive in the world, in a world that tends to default to negative sometimes, unfortunately, and kind of either scouring the internet or scouring our personal memory Rolodexes for a cheerful story to kind of end this show on a good note. And so I pulled something, and I'll share mine in a little bit, but do you want to share your cheerful news story?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you know what? It's so interesting. There is so much good going on out there, and for some reason we are just so inundated with the negative, and everything is good out there. There's good in everything. And I love the story of the Waffle House waitress in Texas. I think it's probably a couple weeks old now, but her name, I wrote it down. Her name is Ivani Williams. She's 18, and she's a waitress at the Waffle House. And her customer, who's sitting at the counter, I guess there was something physically wrong with his hand, and he couldn't cut his meal. And so she just cut the meal for him, and she just did it because of who she is, and that's her integrity, and how she behaved. And she didn't think anybody was looking, and somebody did catch it on tape and found out her story. Again, she's working age 18 to save money to go to college, and of course the local college, I didn't write it down, but they offered her a $16,000 scholarship.
Oh my gosh.
After they heard about her story of how she treated this gentleman and how kind she was. And, you just see, her breaking up and just overwhelmed with, just the fact that she would have done it for anybody.
Yeah.
And she's being rewarded in such a nice way for her kindness.
Yeah.
We don't see, I bet there are a lot of people out there that are kind, but we just don't see it.
Yeah. And one of the other things, I feel like sometimes, people will say, be kind, and, that will kind of come back to you somehow.
Yeah.
And, it's like this whole karma concept. And a lot of times I feel like there are people out there who, they're like, I want to be good because I want to get something in return, and it just never works out that way. It's like it has to be this completely selfless act. It's like if you're trying to do it and in the expectation that you're going to get something back, it just doesn't work. I don't, I definitely have been in that camp of like, oh my gosh, I'm putting all this hard work into blah, 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 and I'm not reaping any benefits. And not that I was trying to be selfish, but it was like, when's my turn? And, it wasn't until I kind of detached from like, I'm just going to do this no matter what. And that's when stuff starts turning around. So it just made me think about that. It's like you see all these stories of people who get rewarded, and it's not just like, oh, I'm going to do this and somebody's going to notice and somebody's going to give me a $16,000 scholarship. But it's just that it's actually practicing that way of being and knowing that, you're in that method of service, and it's not about like what's in it for me. It's really about like, how can I instill more positivity to the outside world. And who
Serve.
cares if I get anything back or not? It doesn't, that's not the primary focus. So
yeah, so I was happy for her. You, when you see the video, you're like, that's the truth about her. That is the total truth about who she is, and good for her.
Absolutely.
Good for her,
I love that. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah.
And
what do you have?
So it was interesting. I kind of stumbled upon this like really, really long article, which I will just put in the show notes for this video. But it started, they were talking about like just how things have shifted from, it was something that came out, I think, last month at some point, but they were talking about how, how much has changed from like 1960 to like 2015, 2016. And the thing that caught my eye, they were talking about, I guess people had just predicted that, poverty rates would increase, just the way that we were doing. And one of the very first paragraphs in this article, and it doesn't talk just about poverty, but it talks about a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll give just a couple examples.
Yeah.
But they said, instead of a rise in poverty rates, the world saw the greatest poverty reduction in human history. In 1981, the World Bank estimated 42.2% of humanity lived on less than $1.90 per person per day. And in 2013, it dropped from 42.2% to 10.7%.
Oh, wow.
That. So it's a huge reduction.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it kind of shows like just some of these percentage reductions over a span of 50 or so years. They talked about the mortality rate, famine, the number of hours worked on average. I kind of did a double take on that because I'm like, maybe that's just because there's more people who are salaried and it just, you don't really count hours. So I was a little skeptical about that one. But, enrollment at all education levels. I think, primary school completion was 74% in 1970 to 90% in 2015.
Oh, wow.
So, there are things that are happening and, of course, I love statistics, but I'm also like, what's the basis of these statistics? Just because it's that tiny little skeptic in me, but just even seeing like how much has changed, from the 60s to now, it's astounding. So that was just kind of my positive news story. The air getting cleaner. Just all of these technological advances, all of these things that we're noticing and we're taking action on. It might not seem like it makes change in a span of a decade or something like that. Even though I would argue that some do make substantial change in a decade. I keep on thinking about like the internet started in like 1990 something, like, and this is how I communicate with like most of the people that I know.
Right.
Now,
right.
It's like
Isn't that crazy?
It's totally crazy. And so, positive change is happening, and sometimes you have to take a step back and look at the bigger scale of how things are really changing, because sometimes when you're in the weeds, you don't notice it. But that was just kind of a, we are moving in good directions in some respects in many things.
For sure.
So we have to practice gratitude about that. So that's my
very good.
story.
Nice. Nice.
So yay. But anyways, we're going to wrap up because we've got a couple more minutes. And for any of you who are watching on a replay, or if you were here live, I saw a couple people come in and out, and it's totally fine. No comments on this one today, but it's fine because we're just having a conversation and throwing that out there in the universe. But, some of the things, the big takeaways for me, on this show are that, it doesn't need to be complicated to be fun. And it is like kind of just looking at the little simple things in life and that can have immense impact. How about you, Deb?
I know. I think it's almost comforting, and to have that confidence in yourself that everything's going to work out okay, and you're actually going to enjoy it, and to just be in the moment and enjoy what's happening.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And so for all of you who are watching, I would definitely just take a moment and pause and think about, where are you, making things too complicated for yourself. I know simplicity is a huge theme for 2018 for me. And so that's why I love this topic. But, how can you make it more simple, and how can you make it more fun? And, in that, what will that bring you? And so if you do see this, if you watch it on YouTube or on Facebook, please feel free to share comments. Deb and I will kind of keep tabs and respond to any ahas or takeaways that you have. And just keep on having fun.
Yeah, very good, very good. Thank you.
So for everyone, I'm trying to figure out, like, where's my finish button on this? For everybody, thank you so much for watching Cheerful Conversations. Our next show is on March 28th. And thank you so much for helping me spread cheer.
Yay.
Thanks, Deb, for being on the show. And we'll talk very, very soon, of course.
All right.
And thanks, everyone else. See you guys later. Happy Pi Day. Bye.